All right, crew, what's up? Good morning. Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE. Pumped to be here on the podcast on a Tuesday, which is a rare appearance for me, but I have a clinical topic. It's not about clinical skill, it's more about growing your clinic, but I think it's most appropriate for this day of the week. So it's the topic is impact and friction and inverse correlation. But it's really something I want you shooting for as our season wraps up. So I'm not a huge personal, what you would call New Year's resolution guy. But I love looking at our businesses and kind of seeing what worked, what didn't, where our teams are, how we're going to kind of reset and focus for next year. I love that process and I love creating action items around it. So that's what I want to do here today is give you really just one action item with maybe a whole bunch of data before it to hopefully drive the importance of it as you turn into this new season. So again, the topic, impact and friction, and inverse correlation. So let's start off with a fact that friction causes fatigue. Okay. So when you're working hard at something and you're not seeing a whole lot of return for your effort, it's exhausting. Okay. There's a lot of examples in your life, but a couple classic ones are whenever you're novice at something, right? Whenever you're starting a new sport or learning a new hobby or whatever, you're working really hard and you're not seeing a whole lot of return, right? There's not a whole lot of flow state, not a whole lot of excellence, not a whole lot of impact. It's a bit of a grind, right? Another classic example is when you're starting a business or anything from scratch. You're putting a lot of effort in and you're not seeing a ton of return. Okay. There's a lot of fatigue. There's a lot of friction in the absence of impact or results. Now, there's no avoiding this to some level, but if you're a mission-driven person, like if you've taken on starting a business or starting an outreach that you really believe in, if you can amplify the effort and get a greater impact, you're going to decrease a lot of the friction and a lot of the fatigue that comes with it. I'm going to give you a few real world examples, a couple marketing ones and a couple clinical ones. And then I want to end with that action item for you and your crew as you turn into 2025. So Hump Day Hustling, okay? This newsletter that ICE puts out every week, right? It takes me about 2 hours to do it. I'm going to do it on the plane. I'm actually in Michigan right now, and I'm flying back to Colorado, and that is on the agenda for the entire plane ride is to get that thing ready. When that 2 hours impacted 25 people, it was pretty tiring, right? Because that's a lot of time allocation to not impact a ton of people. But when that 2 hours of building that newsletter impacted 100 people on that list, it really started feeling worth it. When the 2 hours impacted 1,000 people, it was kind of exciting to write it. And when that 2 hours started impacting 100,000 people, right, it is flat out energizing. The same activity, the same 2 hours of work went from being tiring to literally being the opposite, being energizing, simply as the impact of the effort grew. Because I really believe in the messages we put out in the newsletter. I really want them to create a counter narrative to a lot of the nonsense that's out there. And the more I think it's effective at doing that, the more that effort becomes energizing, not exhausting. I'll give you another example. I also write the Onward Pulse. So for our Onward clinics, every other week, we write kind of a fun newsletter that goes out to all of our patients at all these different clinics. It includes like little ways to hack your health and things to learn. It's really fun to share with patients. But I will say, when I was writing that every other week, when we had 5 clinics and maybe it was hitting 50 people, it was kind of tiring. But now, when I wrote it yesterday and it went out to 40 clinics and probably tens of thousands of patients, it was so energizing because I really felt like these things that we were digging up and sharing from our team were helping so many people. It went from tiring to energizing. Team, this podcast, I'm actually sitting in the room in Michigan right now where we started this podcast a decade ago. And I never missed, right? We did it every single day. And sometimes it was tiring, because it was only going out to a handful of people around the area. But when Alan started talking about downloads in the millions, it became not only not tiring, but a little bit nerve-wracking and exciting to have the Daily Show mic because you knew it was having a huge impact. All of those marketing examples or outreach examples went from tiring to energizing, not because the activity changed, because what the impact that the effort that was put in, how that elevated. That was the only variable that changed. I'll give you some more real world clinical examples. When I was here in Michigan, in the clinic I'm in right now, we had these hours that we booked over at the YMCA just to help people out. They couldn't get into the clinic. They were pro bono hours. When I would book 4 hours over there and only fill 2 slots, it was kind of exhausting because it was hard to use the free time because it wasn't a really conducive setup to doing other work. So you kind of had some wasted bandwidth in there and you walked away and maybe you engaged with 2 people, one person that you really thought got the message. That was tiring. A couple of years later, though, when we blocked those same 4 hours, but me and a colleague went over there, we were booked the whole time, both of us every 15 minutes. All of a sudden, we came alongside 20 people that maybe didn't have the resources to actually come into our clinic and get formal treatment. We were able to help dozens of people over a 4-hour period. And I got to hang out with a colleague and it was a blast. Same amount of time, same outreach effort, different impact, different effect on your energy levels, on your nervous system, on your kind of mission-driven vision. Very, very different results, same activity. Think about when you're doing workshops. How tiring is it when you set everything up? The most tiring one I ever did was Bozeman, Montana. Did a workshop for 0 people, right? Had all the coffee set up, had the library reserved, had my projector ready, my slides ready. Nobody. How exhausting is that? You go home and you literally got no impact out of all of this effort. A few years later, I was doing it to 30 people in Bozeman, right? That library series really took off. How energizing. Same amount of time, same effort, massively different result, right? Because impact accelerated, fatigue decreased. Taking a little bit different spin on it, doing any of this, right? Including this show, which I don't do nearly as often anymore, but doing any of this forever. Very fatiguing, even the idea of it. But guiding the next generation to take over the mic, to build these newsletters, to do these workshops, becoming a mentor in this space, very energizing. Same activity, different role, different impact, different result. So I think all the things that you're doing, you should always be looking to pass them off. Right? Not quickly. You want to build, you want to be a part, but the fact that you know you're going to is very energizing. And certainly the process of mentoring somebody once you do is very energizing. That is a million examples. Let's get to the action item. How do you get here faster? Okay, so when you've got these activities, these outreaches, whether they're marketing focused or clinical focused or pro bono, whatever they are that you've decided really matter, first of all, choose ones that can scale. That's my first tip to you always. None of this makes sense if you can't scale the thing, right? I'm talking about the impact going up. There needs to be a relatively high ceiling. So I always talk to you all about don't just choose something that you could only do for one gym or for a limited community or that would have a limited overall volume or ceiling. Pick things that if it goes really well, you could see having a massive impact on your community or your followers or what have you. So choose something that has a big ceiling. But more importantly, for the actual action item of the episode is amplify intentionally. This is where, if you want to go fast, go alone, if you want to go far, really comes together. Amplify intentionally. As you turn towards the new year with your teams, get some clarity on what everyone is trying to grow. What is Nikki trying to grow? What is John trying to grow? Make sure on your teams, you understand what each person's trying to grow and then make a plan to amplify. Make an actual plan. Like so-and-so is going to put that out on this day at this time, and we're all going to share it to these platforms. With these workshops that so-and-so is doing, each of us is going to go to one of our best relationships and make sure 2 people get to that workshop. Make an actual plan to amplify your team members' missions. Because the faster you amplify those, the more that you turn their fatigue into energy. We talked a million examples. I could give you a ton more on things that as they had bigger impact, got more energizing and less fatiguing. You as a team can actually do that by design. but you have to know what your buddies are trying to do, and you have to have an actual ongoing consistent plan to create the amplification. When you do, the person spearheading it will have less fatigue and more energy. If you do that for all of you, the same goes for your entire crew, your entire company. As you turn towards 2025, think about how you can maximize amplification and impact to decrease fatigue. Team, have an awesome Tuesday. Have a very Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday. We'll see you on the other side of it.